Okay, so I'm doing a follow-up to my video a month or so ago on the Steeldive SD1969, which is an homage to the ProPlof 1200. Basically, a couple things I really didn't like about it. Number one is the caseback was extremely rough. I believe they use like a plunge EDM process, and they leave the recast layer in there, so it was very, very rough and abrasive, and it felt like rough or coarse sandpaper on the back of my wrist. So I've polished that to give that a nice smooth feeling now. Didn't change the looks that much, other than it doesn't have that matte finish below. The second issue I had with it was when you went to set the time, the crown guard would fall off because the stem would come out so far, it would disengage the lugs from the case and it would just fall off. And then you had to kind of manipulate it back on. It was hard to get the time back without it moving when you tried to put it on. So what I did is I took the stem out, I trimmed the length by about 20 thousandths, 0.02 inch, or for the folks that are metric, 0.508 millimeters. And once I put it back together, what I found is it doesn't fall off anymore. Sometimes it's a little hard to engage or to get it to snap back in. It did that before. It just has a little bit less room to do that now, but I can hear it once I snap it into place. It works fine. Another thing that I did is pretty obvious is I filled in the date window. I don't like having the date on my watches. I have several automatic watches, and if I let it sit for a few days, then what happens is I have to go around to get the date set back. So I took the date, I filled the date window in. That was a bit of a process. And then also what I did is, as I move the hands out of the way, you'll see I've changed the logo. I took off the Steeldive logo and basically took a Seamaster that I purchased, a Seamaster dial that I purchased from a guy in France off from eBay. I took the logo off from the Seamaster dial. It's kind of a vintage dial. And I put that raised logo on this dial. And then I sealed the face in acrylic. Plastic acrylic, so that it would be locked in place and it would protect the dial. Now during that process, something I hadn't thought about is the acrylic has UV inhibitors, and so now the indices do not glow. The lume doesn't glow. The bezel does and the hands do, but not the indices on the dial. Not a big deal for me. So let me see. I closed the date, added the logo. The shark mesh bracelet is something I had on it before. It gives it a more authentic look as well. I'm not trying to pass it off or sell it as a real Omega. I just want it to look a little more authentic. And then one of the other things is the AR coating. For some reason, they decided to put it on the outside of the crystal instead of the inside, which most watches have it on the inside. And within a couple weeks, it was starting to flake off. And when the light hit it just right, it really looked bad. So I polished that off. It now has no AR coating, but I'm fine with that. Other than that, I'm now very, very happy with this watch. I can now set the date without the crown falling off. If I push it in till I hear it click, it's a little harder, like I said. But once I do, then I can screw down the crown and it locks the crown guard in place. So that's it. Thanks a lot. Happy New Year.